There are stories that circulate because they entertain, and others because they feel like warnings that escaped their original context. The account of the smiling man belongs to the latter category, lingering not because of shock or spectacle, but because of the way it unsettles the assumptions people carry about safety, familiarity, and the human form itself. It presents no gore, no explicit violence, only a brief encounter that leaves a residue of unease disproportionate to its simplicity. What disturbs listeners most is not what happens, but how little happens before certainty begins to erode. The encounter is usually placed in a city at night, a familiar urban environment stripped down to its most vulnerable state. Streets are quiet, not abandoned, but emptied by the natural rhythms of sleep. Streetlights cast clean, rational pools of visibility that promise order and predictability. This setting matters because it is not exotic or overtly dangerous. It is the kind of place where people reassure themselves that nothing truly strange can occur. The narrator is alert but not afraid, attentive but not paranoid, occupying the mental space most people inhabit when they believe they are alone but not at risk. This psychological neutrality is essential because it means the fear does not originate from expectation but from intrusion. The figure appears gradually, not announced by sound or movement, but by presence. At first, it is simply a man walking, his posture oddly stiff, his gait deliberate yet unnatural. There is nothing immediately monstrous about him, and this ambiguity delays alarm. Human beings are conditioned to categorize quickly, and when something fits just well enough into a familiar category, the mind resists escalating concern. The smiling man exploits this hesitation. He looks almost normal, almost human, but not convincingly so, as if he is performing humanity from memory rather than instinct. The smile itself is where the story's psychological weight concentrates. It is not expressive or reactive, but fixed, wide, and unearned. In ordinary social interaction, a smile is a response, a signal tied to context and emotion. This one exists independently of circumstance, untouched by the environment or the presence of another person. It does not invite connection, it announces intent without explanation. Observers often describe the smile as too symmetrical, too sustained, revealing teeth without warmth, as though the muscles involved are being held in place rather than naturally engaged. The longer it persists, the more it destabilizes the assumption that the figure is governed by the same rules of embodiment and emotion as everyone else. As the distance between observer and figure closes, tension emerges not from pursuit, but from synchronization. The smiling man does not rush, he does not stalk. He adjusts his pace to mirror the narrator's movements, maintaining proximity without escalation. This restraint suggests awareness and control, qualities that shift the fear from instinctive to existential. A predator that does not need to hurry implies certainty. The mind begins to search for explanations that fail as quickly as they form. Mental illness, intoxication, a social miscue taken too far. Each possibility collapses under the persistence of the smile and the unnatural stillness of the man's eyes, which seem focused not on the body before him, but on something behind it or beyond it. What deepens the unease is the absence of clear threat. The smiling man never states an intention. He does not reach out or speak. The fear arises from implication alone, from the sense that the encounter is not accidental. There is a feeling of being selected, not targeted for harm in a conventional sense, but acknowledged as part of a process already underway. This aligns the story with older folkloric traditions in which supernatural entities reveal themselves subtly, offering no immediate violence but demanding recognition. The danger lies not in attack, but in attention. When the narrator finally reacts, the response is instinctive rather than strategic. Flight replaces observation. Yet even in retreat, the presence persists, not always visible but felt, as though the smile has imprinted itself on perception. The turning point comes when the figure breaks its silence, often with a gesture that defies interpretation, a wave, a nod, an exaggerated expression of courtesy that mocks social norms. This moment crystallizes the horror because it confirms awareness. The smiling man is not lost, confused, or unaware of the fear he inspires. He understands it and appears to savor the imbalance it creates. Analytically, the smiling man functions as a violation of several deep psychological boundaries at once. He occupies public space, but behaves as though private rules apply. He wears a human form, but does not adhere to human emotional logic. He engages socially without participating in social exchange. This places him in the uncanny valley, not visually, but behaviorally. The story suggests that monstrosity does not require claws or fangs. It requires only a subtle misalignment between appearance and intent. The smile becomes a mask that cannot be removed, implying either a lack of interior life or the presence of something so alien that human expression is merely a crude approximation. Some interpretations frame the smiling man as a manifestation of urban isolation, a symbol of the fear that beneath everyday anonymity lies something watching, waiting, rehearsing normalcy without understanding it. Others read him as an echo of older mythic figures, tricksters, watchers, entities bound by rules unknown to those they observe. What unites these readings is the sense that the encounter is not unique. It feels repeatable, transferable, capable of happening to anyone who moves through the world unguarded by constant suspicion. The climax of the account does not resolve in confrontation or explanation. Instead, it ends with survival that feels provisional. The narrator escapes, reaches safety, but carries the certainty that avoidance was permitted rather than achieved. There is no triumph in this ending, only reprieve. The smiling man remains unaccounted for, uncontained, unchallenged by any authority. The absence of closure reinforces the story's power, suggesting that the rules governing such encounters are not ours to understand or enforce. What lingers after the narration concludes is not fear of being chased, but fear of being recognized. The smiling man does not need to follow forever.
He only needs to be seen once to fracture the illusion that the world's dangers are always loud, obvious, and external. His smile implies continuity, a promise that whatever he is, he persists beyond the edges of the story, walking calmly through spaces people assume are safe, practicing expressions that do not belong to him. In that sense, the horror is not confined to a single night or street, but embedded in the unsettling possibility that the line between the familiar and the inhuman is thinner and more permeable than most people are willing to admit.